when is a time in your life where you knew that you were in the exact spot that you needed to be?
Wow. I wanna go down this road a little bit. So, I can think of a lot of different times, but I think, sorry. I have opinions about everything, just like everybody does.
Dude, I love it. And
Yeah.
and we're good to go already. So like I don't
Okay.
really ever have a start or an end. But I want to start with this. So we were just talking about it. You've been to 3 man games.
Okay.
What do you get out of man games?
What do I get out of man games? So what I think I get out of man games is it just kind of takes you back, right? It takes you back to when you were a kid. It takes you back to when you were competing in sports, whether it was collegiately or professionally or in high school or whatever. Like it reminds you of a lot. It reminds me a lot of those memories, right? Competing against people that I knew, that I liked, that I didn't like, right? I mean, you can just, it just kind of takes you back. And I think because there's a lot of competitive spirit, there's a lot of people that are there. They're there to win. They're very competitive. It's super fun. But everybody's a good dude. Like everybody in all the man games has been really, really fun. It's been fun to get to know people. And I think there's going to be a lot of lifelong friendships that come of this. And especially as you grow it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the difficult thing is keeping that small, intimate feel of the 8 teams with what you're trying to do going forward. I think that's going to be one of the harder things, just like it is with anything. When you're trying to scale a business, when you're trying to scale man games, when you're trying to scale anything, that's what makes it so fun. It's those 8 teams. You're constantly competing against other people, and it's been a blast. It's been really fun.
And that's the struggle that I'm having right now is it's almost like you mentioned businesses, right? And a lot of businesses, they have that family feel when they start because they're small enough to where they can have those one-on-one interactions. And then as they grow, that gets a little bit harder when you scale. And so I'm trying to find that happy balance to where it's big enough to get more people involved, but that it's not so big that you don't, or that you lose out on kind of that friendship that you're able to make in this event.
Yeah. No, and I agree. And I think and I think the events, I mean, I've done 3, right? So I haven't done a lot. I'm not a seasoned veteran, but I don't think I'm ever not going to do it. Like if I can do it, I will be there. It's been so fun. So fun to support you, to see everybody. It's almost like not a high school reunion, but it's almost like a reunion every time. It's like, there's going to be certain people that are going to be there. But it's been really fun.
Which event was your favorite of the 3 that you've been to? Because we were just talking about this before we started about how they all kind of have their own little personalities.
Yeah. I would say, I mean, they were all unique, right? This most recent one, before we were talking about that. It's like there were a lot of close games. It didn't feel like we were in last. We lost. We got last, which still hurts. It still kills me, right? Everybody's competitive. I mean, ultra competitive. I mean, my family motto, right, is if you're not first, you're last, right? I mean, that's just what it is. But I think the last one, it was really fun. I mean, I hadn't met Brad. I hadn't met Peyton. I hadn't met half my team, right? But we were able to gel really quickly, get into it, get going. I think, obviously, with anything, and we prepared and practiced the events and gotten together, we obviously would have done better. And that would have been, I think, the difference, because so many of our basketball games were close. Pickleball games were fairly close. Like, a lot of them were close. Had we gotten together, just like anything we'd put in the prep work, we would have done better. But I enjoyed that one. I wasn't there for all the events. I really am bummed about missing the home run derby. So many people say that was one of their favorite events, just talking to folks. But that's another thing I think that is kind of a core value of mine, though. It's like I had committed to being, the head coach for my son's baseball team. So that we had a game. It was in the tournament. We had a singular focus all season to get to the finals and win, right, into the final game, the championship game. And we did eventually. But that happened that night. We had to go play. We had to go win, and we did. Because once again, if you're not first, you're last. You got to win. But I'm bummed that I missed those 2. But it was fun. It was a whole different level, like you said. Coming into that, we had gotten second in the last man games, really close to first. And you're like, you know what? Obviously, I had a different group of guys, but it was totally a different feel. Just I don't know, just a competitive level, just the level of athletes and just the level of people. Like it was really, really fun. I think the second one I did was my favorite though.
Yeah.
And it's with guys in my neighborhood that I did it with. So I've gotten to know them really well. We all have done things together, you know, over the last little while. And I feel like we played well together. We complemented each other. And I don't know what the feel was about that one, but I really enjoyed that one. I know you didn't compete in that one, right?
Yeah.
So you were curating that one, right? And maybe that was part of why I enjoyed it. And maybe that we didn't have to play against you too. I think that was part of it. I think that plays into it. First one was really fun too. I really enjoyed that. I didn't know what to expect. So I think after that first one, it's like I knew what kind of to expect. There's obviously going to be some different nuances and things, but it just felt a little more comfortable, more at ease, and it was a blast.
Yeah.
So all three were slightly different, and it's really hard to describe, you know, why they were different.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it seems like we've had a lot come on here that was their first time, and I think there is a huge advantage to have been there before because you just know what to expect and what's coming up. And my book-long emails just don't quite paint the picture that they need to, where people don't read them.
There were a lot less emails the third time, right?
Yes.
It's slowly gone down. I mean, I think a lot of us are a little lost, you know, in the third time, you know, because we didn't have all the novels and the emails, but it was awesome. It was really fun. So what has been
your favorite swag item over the three? Because we try to go big on swag or on prizes and everything else. So
I mean, I think the best was that business card from Taylor Dance.
That was probably the most valuable.
That was worth a lot of money. So I mean, that was a lot. But outside of that, I would say, honestly, I use the backpack from this last one all the time. I've used it traveling. I've used it just around. It has so many cool pockets. I'm still finding stuff. I know you went through all the pockets there, but I'm still like, oh, that's amazing. I found that. I forgot about my beer soap in there, right?
Yeah.
I totally missed it. But it's just a really awesome bag. I like bags.
Yeah.
So that was the win for me.
Nice. There is a power bank pocket. We didn't put anything in there because nobody finds it, but if you dig down deep, there's a power bank pocket because you can connect to it. So.
Yeah, I saw that. I got to figure that part out. Yeah.
It's hard to find. But seriously, you've been a sponsor at these, and it's such a huge help to make that event what it is. And so what you were able to sponsor this time went to that poker night, and I know you missed the poker night because of the baseball game that you brought up, but it just makes the event from sponsors like yourself and others just makes it just so cool. I mean, just such a different, unique experience to make it be professional. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I want to get into that in a minute around what you do.
Yeah.
But I also want to dive into some of these questions. Some of them are pretty out there. So
good.
You got to be ready for this.
Good. I have no idea, I'm sure, who they're coming from, right?
Yeah, we'll start with the weird ones first.
Okay.
Do you believe in Sasquatch?
Do I believe in Sasquatch? So growing up in a little town up in Cache Valley, right? Grew up in Providence. I mean, there were a couple thousand people. Sasquatch was very much alive, and people thought that it was up in Logan Canyon, right?
Yeah.
And people had sighted it. They've got their cameras set up for hunting up there or whatever, and they'd always post those videos, right? Even Brandon Fugel has done some ghost things up in Logan Canyon at the nunnery up there.
Wow.
So I think so. I think so.
How would you convince, he says, if you were to act like you did believe, please convince me. So how would you convince somebody that Sasquatch is real?
How do you know that anything's real, right? Like, how do you, I mean, right? You have to have faith, right?
Yeah,
It starts with that. But how you convince somebody, I don't know. Honestly, I mean, that's hard to sell it. I think it's just painting that picture, right? I mean, the people that believe in anything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you'll believe in, that the vaccine's going to help you, right? You're going to believe a lot of different things, but I don't know.
The story of Sasquatch has been around for so long; it has to be real.
Well, think about. I mean, that's maybe it, right? Maybe Loch Ness is real too, right? With every myth or legend, right? There's some truth to it, right?
Yeah.
So as our kids are getting older and they're starting to realize certain things are not real.
Yeah, we're my kids listen to this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. We're not going to burst any bubbles on this podcast today. It's a kid friendly show, but there is, right, Norse mythology. Like, I mean, really, my son really got into Greek mythology and even the Romans and a bunch of other stuff. They listen to podcasts, right, about these different myths. There's always something to that, right? And then it evolves over time and it changes, right? Sasquatch. It was probably something. It's probably real, but it's evolved so much over time, right?
Yeah.
It's just like with anything, right? Yeah. If it evolves over time, it's going to change.
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot of Thor and even like controlling fire and all that stuff. Is like if you go back 1,000 years and you have a lighter, like you're a
control
god.
fire. Yeah.
Or if you have a taser, you control lightning. Like, it's just like if you had any sort of technological
You're
advancement.
Odin. You could do all these things. You're the All-Father.
Yeah. Going along the same line, if you were to be one mythical creature, what would you be?
Mythical creature.
These are all the same person.
Yeah, these are great. I was definitely not prepared for these. These are not questions that I typically answer in my day-to-day life. Mythical creature. Oh man, I'm gonna come back to that one.
Okay.
I'm gonna squirrel back to that one. It'll happen.
What is your best hiding spot ever?
My best hiding spot, whether it's for me or is it something. So ask my wife, right? Yeah. I walk around the house with water bottles. I walk around with my phone, my wallets, my keys. I lose my AirPod Pros all the time, but I put it somewhere that I think I'm going to be able to find it, right? Yeah. So I think my best hiding spot is just the last thing I put away.
Like you don't even know because it's so good. You don't even know where the spot is.
I have no idea half the time where my spots are. I don't even know where I'm putting things.
You can pass on this one if you want, but it says, please recite the ABCs backwards.
I'm good. I can't. Okay. My 9-year-old would probably do it, but I don't think I can do it.
I go through all the questions because I just don't want to discriminate against people. If you were to describe Eric by only explaining what kind of vibe he gives off, how would you describe Eric?
Vibe. Okay. I would say that you have a very humble, laid-back vibe, but you're also cutthroat. You're also going to win, right? and I don't think people would know that. And whether it's sports or business or whatever, it's like you're going to win. You're going to win quietly, and you're going to go on to the next thing and be like, what just happened? Honestly, I don't know if that's describing a vibe, but that's the vibe that I've gotten from you. I think when you first introduced me to Man Games, I think it sums it up. You're like, you like sports, right? You're maybe a little athletic. You should sign up for this thing. You're like nonchalant about it. Then we get there and you just trash everybody. So, I mean, I would say that, it's humble, but you're very good at everything you do. So.
I think what's important around that is controlling the environment. So the only reason I'm able to excel is because I make the environment.
You curate it.
Yeah. So it's easy to win when you make it.
Yeah.
All right. So Colton, our videographer.
Okay.
He asked, what advice would you give to a 20-year-old? But he's 22. So I'm going to say, what advice would you give to your 22-year-old self? Practical advice, not like Bitcoin.
Yeah. Buy Bitcoin, buy it at $1.
And then sell it.
Sell it at 67,000 or whatever it got up to. Don't hodl forever, right? I mean, that's my advice. But honestly, I think when you're 22, one, you think you know everything, right? You might even have a big ego. Not speaking for, I don't have an ego at all. I think, of course not. Never have. Mm-hmm. Never going to. It's not going to happen. Hypothetically speaking, I think you need to find that one mentor, find a person, and it may take time, right? Find someone that you can emulate that's doing what you want to do and follow that person, whether that's someone that you have access to, whether that's someone that you don't have access to, whether that's, someone that you're just emulating, I gave you a book right today, right? Yeah. Ed Mylett is a mentor of mine. I've met him a few times. I've talked to him a few times. He's awesome, but mostly it's from afar, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a few other people like that. So I think it's just finding, whatever it is you want to do with your life. I mean, and that goes with anything, not just your career, right? I think it's listen to those people that have been where you are and actually listen, right? Yeah. When you're young, there's so many different things that you want to do. There's so many different, you think you know everything, right? It's just, I think it goes back to being humble, being willing to listen, and then being willing to act and execute on it and just fail as many times as you can possibly fail. Fail a lot, fail often at whatever it is. And you're going to quickly decide or be able to pivot towards whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah.
And buy Bitcoin. And buy Bitcoin.
Well, at 20 and 22, that's the benefit they have. And I think even us, is time, right? We have time to make those mistakes. And I think as I'm getting older too, what I'm trying to balance around that and those mentors is picking out what I can use and being aware enough to understand what I don't need, right? Because I may admire them in one aspect of life, but then there are other aspects of life where people maybe let us down or whatever else. And it's like, okay, I don't want that part of my life, but they are succeeding here. Sometimes I wonder if it's possible to get to certain points and not have certain attributes, if that makes sense, like the chicken and the egg.
No, I think it does make sense. So another mentor that of mine is Andy Frisella, right? I mean, a lot of people know who he is. I did 75 hard back before it was cool.
Yeah.
I've been part of one of his mastermind groups. He's awesome, but there are definitely aspects to what he does and says and is that don't align with his core values that it drives me crazy. And I think for me, a big one of my core values is just being genuine to who you are. So if you say something, do it, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to do something or act a certain way, and it's not that you always have to be that way, right? He's in the public eye. He does a podcast a couple times a week. He's going to say things. He's going to do things that don't align with what he does. But his ultimate goal and what he's doing and what he's putting out into the world is amazing.
Yeah.
There are just certain areas where, to your point, right? It's what do you take away from that? What do you not want to emulate? It's hard, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, like if Superman, right? I mean, maybe you know, like Superman, he's perfect in so many different ways, but he obviously has flaws. He has things that he doesn't do well.
Yeah. No, totally.
I don't know what those are, but we'll find those out one day.
I'm sure somebody will.
It's his disguise. He doesn't have a good disguise. He
Put
wears
it on
glasses.
social media and people will find it.
Yes.
Yeah. This is kind of going along with this. So one was, what are your thoughts on crypto?
Crypto?
Yeah. So just for everybody watching who doesn't know you well, I mean, you're in the investment world. You're a financial mastermind. You're great. You do awesome things. And
That's on my job title. It's on my business card. My mastermind.
Mastermind.
Yep.
But from a financial perspective and investments, what are your thoughts on crypto?
So, and this is something, right? I think it goes back to, you know, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. They're these old, grumpy people that they don't understand crypto, and they don't want anything to do with it. It's when you invest in anything, not that you're ever going to fully understand everything you're investing in, but understand what you're investing in, or at least have a basic understanding before you put money into it, right? Yeah. And obviously, with the recent collapse of FTX and even BlockFi, you know, recently just declaring bankruptcy, and a lot of people have money in there, and I've lost tens of thousands of dollars of my own money in that. It's just gone, right? And a lot of people have lost a lot of money. I think, and I'm probably gonna get some backlash on this, but in our world, and I'll bring this full circle, I promise. But in our world, so we manage retirement plans. It's our focus, right? We help individuals, but we mainly help companies manage corporate retirement plans, you know, from a compliance standpoint, making sure fees are in line, from a fiduciary standpoint. You know, there's a lot of fun things that we do, I promise. It's not all boring. Yeah. But in our world, the Department of Labor recently came out and said, you shouldn't offer cryptocurrencies as a core investment option in your 401k plans. And they listed out, if you do, you need to exercise extreme care or caution. When they say that, they mean we will audit you.
Yeah.
So don't do it. And they give you 5 major reasons why you shouldn't do it. It's very Machiavellian. It's a big overreach, because what it created in our world is, well, what about those retirement plans that it's not a core investment, it's in a self-directed brokerage, and you're not, as the employer, sponsoring that. That's just the known universe of funds, right? And you can go invest in that. So so the government obviously doesn't like it because they can't really control it, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's an appeal there, right? I think the appeal is most of those, you know, those custodians and things like that that are actually decentralized. The centralized ones, BlockFi is centralized, FTX centralized. A lot of those have gone down. They've gone down in a big way. I think having a portion of your investable assets in that is okay. But at this point, because there's so much volatility and there's so much money it's just gone, right? Because there's so much fraud. That's the thing. It's going to get more and more and more regulated. Whatever you believe with FTX and what really happened there was obviously, it was extreme fraud, right? I mean, the Wall Street Journal is trying to paint this picture of this guy. He's still getting paid to come and do book tours and things like that. It's unreal. This guy commits all this fraud, wipes off, you know, billions of dollars. You know, we don't even know really the extent. I mean, it's hundreds of billions of dollars. And he's still being propped up as someone, a pillar in the investment community. It drives the rest of us crazy, right? But I would say just having a portion in there, understanding it is a big thing. But really understanding the difference between the Bitcoins and the Ethereums and all of the other projects, you know, diving down to the founders and things like that. It's not always going to protect you, right? Yeah. But I think a big part of that too is just having cold wallets. Don't have it attached to your assets in any of these custodians, because obviously we've seen a lot of them got way too levered up because everything was just going to go up forever.
Yeah.
And they went down, right? I mean, Warren Buffett says it best, right? I mean, all boats are going to float. I mean, they're all going to do extremely well. when things are doing well.
Yeah.
But when the tide goes down, you can see who's naked, right? There's a lot of these custodians or a lot of these exchanges that are completely naked. They're so levered up. There's no way that if someone goes to get something out of it, that are going to be able to cover that. And that's what's been happening. So I would say yes. I mean, I think it is the future, but they're going to regulate it more and more. You're going to see central banks. They're going to create their own digital currencies. Whatever you think with that will give the government more and more control of every aspect of your life. So I think that I like the decentralized ones, but I think you really got to understand it before you put into it. And I've gotten burned, just like a lot of people have gotten burned, but it was money that I was okay to lose.
Yeah.
It's not going to affect my day-to-day life. So
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the different coins and stuff too. I mean, Bitcoin's obviously the big one, and then Ethereum are the big names. Does it make sense to stick to kind of the bigger, more established things? And I know like meme coins, I mean, people will get crazy wealthy off of meme coins by getting lucky, but it seems like that's like a lottery type of a thing. You're really rolling the dice there.
Yeah, and honestly, people get so excited about these fads, right? Whatever it is. I mean, I was listening to a podcast today, and there are not a lot, but there are people that get lucky with the meme coins. They get lucky in business. They get lucky. They chase a fad. They hit it at the right time, have maybe first mover's advantage or somewhere around there, and they just knock it out of the park in something. For most of us, there's no silver bullet to investing. There's no silver bullet to fitness or being good at sports or creating and curating man games, right? It's the consistency, it's putting in the reps, and it's going to take time, right? We do retirement plan education meetings all the time, right? We just did one yesterday for most of the day. And the overarching theme in every single one of those is really start investing as early as you can, put away as much as you can. And the last one is the most important, stay consistent with it. Obviously the regulators don't love us showing things that just go up and to the right. Like we kind of get in trouble. It's too promissory, right? Past results are no guarantee of future, right? I mean, there's a lot that goes on with that. But I think with these things, they're super sexy. You can make a lot of money, right? And I think a lot of people had FOMO, right?
Yeah.
They're like, hey, fear of missing out. They're going to do this. But you do need to look at historically what Bitcoin specifically has done, right? It typically goes up. It launches up. I mean, this last time, it went to as they say, it goes to the moon, right? It went to the moon. But then it loses 80 to 90% of its value. It bottoms out. So maybe the bottom's around 12,000 or something like that. That's what my brother keeps telling me, right? He's a CFA. He's a big nerd, right? He's like, back up the bus, buy it there, and it'll pop, right? It typically has done this. It'll go up a few 100%, a few 1,000%, go down 90, reset, and then when there's a risk on trade again, it'll come back, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways to invest. That's why have a small portion in there, right? If you are willing to take that risk, and you're going to be highly rewarded for it, but there's going to be a lot more volatility, and you need to be very careful with what you're doing. I would say, get into Bitcoin, Ethereum, a few of the bigger ones. There's a lot of them that actually are, right? They're solving problems, right? Mm-hmm. Get into some of those. Look at some different projects. And I think DeFi is going to be a big thing, but it's also going to be regulated a lot too, right? Yeah. You're going to have a lot of these stable coins that have completely gone away. I lost my shorts in some where I, did some staking and things. And but I think as those get more regulated, they're going to look more and more and more like banks, right? Yeah. And that's what they want. The government wants their piece of this. They're having a hard time regulating it. They don't even understand that a lot of these don't hold the actual funds. They're just an exchange to facilitate it, right? So I would say I'm very pro crypto, but not more than you're willing to lose. That's just my thought, right? I'm more of a long-term investing guy because that's what we do day in and day out, right? That's what I know.
And we have other questions, but I think this is a good time to just kind of go into this and what you do. You've alluded to it with the retirement plans, especially for businesses, a little bit on the individual side, but GBS Retire, take us through what that is, what it means, and how you help people, and more specifically, who can come to you for your help? What does that person look like?
Yeah, no. And you know me, it's going to be a long wind up, but I will answer it. So for me, where this whole journey started was before I was even alive. So my grandpa was one of the first 4 certified financial planners in the country, CFP, right? A lot of people have it now. He helped found the Financial Planning Association, helped write the tax code for 457 plans, which for those people that don't know, right, 401k, all it is a part of the tax code. And we sell 401ks. We don't sell a 401k, right? We help facilitate people setting that up. But he was a pillar in the industry, right? He did very well for himself in a tiny little town in Logan, Utah. My dad ran the business for a while. He was a CFP. At one point, I would have been the first third generation CFP in the country.
Wow.
I didn't follow through, right? Going back to that, what do you tell your 20-year-old or 22-year-old self? I did the coursework. I just needed to do capstone and go sit for the test. I could have done it. But honestly, I'm glad I didn't, because the niche that I found and what I do, that really doesn't relate. But kind of backing back up to that, the reason I got into doing anything to do with financial planning is when I was a kid, I didn't want to do anything. But I was also the weird kid that at 12 and 10 and whatever, I would ask my dad, why are gas prices the way they are? Why is this? Why do we get to go, these conferences? Like what are mutual funds? What is this? I was so intrigued with what my dad did. But at the same time, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do the family business at the time. But my dad passed away about 20 years ago, and he had his clients and friends come up to me and my siblings at my dad's funeral and tell us, without your dad, without your grandpa, we wouldn't be retired and doing the things we're doing today. They made a big difference in people's lives, right? I just thought they took people golfing and out to lunch and dinner and things like that. They did. They wined and dined people. That's part of the job. But they made a big, big difference. So that's where it reignited that passion or that flame to help individuals and help people do that. I failed as a financial advisor twice. Most people in business have failed a few different times at whatever they're trying to do, right? So I got another shot at it kind of a little bit later on in life. And I'm so old.
You are old.
I mean, I started when I was doing this when I was 12. They just signed me up. I passed the Series 7 at 12.
Child labor laws were different.
Dude, it was back in the day, it was way different. But really, so then a few years, I've been doing this for 14 years. So I got back into doing it. One of my mentors, he took a big shot on me, right? He had a really good opportunity where he had 6 retirement plan clients. So that's companies that sponsor a retirement plan. He was attached to a PNC and benefit shop, so they were referring him business, and he really wasn't taking advantage of that opportunity. He had shifted over to his niche, what he liked to do, which was helping individuals and helping people, in retirement or close to retirement and building wealth and passing that on. I didn't necessarily love that aspect. I'm going to go back a little bit. So kind of back to the question that Colton posed, right? What would you tell your 20-year-old or 22-year-old self? I remember being in between basically a non-compete / failing, doing what I was doing, and I had about a year to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. So I went and I was an insurance adjuster. It was terrible. Honestly, hated it. I mean, I was very good at insurance because I understood all the rules and regulations, and quickly I did well at it. I just hated it. But when we would drive, my wife would go back to Logan, or that's where I'm from, or go wherever. We'd be in the car. We would talk. We didn't have kids at the time, so you could actually talk to each other instead of hearing the kids in the back, talking over you, and you can never even hear yourself think, as you know. But we would talk about, what are our dreams? What do we want to do? What do we want to accomplish? And I described to her once, I don't know why I'm crying about this, but I described to her once exactly the job that I found with Parker. I described it to a T. And she was like, so if you could do anything, what would you do? And I described, I want a job that has, I want to get back into financial advising. I want the ability to have something where there's almost like a built-in referral source. As long as you're doing a good job, it's going to be hard, it's going to be whatever, but I want to kind of build it from scratch. But I want the opportunity for that to be kind of built in. And there's a lot more that I described, but I basically described that job a year before the opportunity presented itself. So I think going back to that is, visualizing, thinking about, and constantly having what you want to be doing. And I keep going back to career, but it's with your kids too, with your family, with whatever your other goals are in life. You need to keep those in front of you. You need to constantly be reminding yourself about that. So we have this little thing in our house where it's this little flip chart that's kind of about like basically like good manners, like for our kids. And it's in the kitchen. So our 9-year-old and our 7-year-old who read, right, they'll see it sometimes and it'll say something about, if you're a guest, right, see how you can help, like whether it's Thanksgiving or whatever. Or, there's a few other examples where it just goes through different things and we start seeing our kids like helping with certain things where they've never helped with before. And it goes back to that principle, like, keep those things that are important to you in front of you. And it's just that repetition. I think it just goes back to that constant, everything else, just that consistency of whatever it is. Also, so I described that. I started doing that. I was a young 24, 25-year-old, right? Like I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know that niche, right? So it took some ramp up time. And my business partner at the time, Parker, he was great, but he really didn't know that business either. So he introduced me to people that really did know that business. And I learned that business, got really proficient in that business. And then we grew it from helping 6 companies to over about 100 companies in about 5 or 6 years. Wow. And then long story short, I took my book of business over to GBS Benefits. So to run GBS Retire. So we're part of GBS Benefits. GBS Benefits is the largest benefit brokerage in Utah, right? They do more revenue than Lockton, Mercer, Hub, all of those combined in the state of Utah. They're an awesome company to be a part of. And I don't just say that. The reason I bring that up is when I was our company was Presidio Wealth Management. We were part of the Presidio group. They did P&C and benefits. They referred a lot of things to us. They eventually sold to Gallagher, right? So a lot of my friends that I worked with for a long time, they were at Gallagher. We didn't want to be employee number 4,521, right? We just did not want, it didn't fit what our culture was, what we wanted to do. So we told Gallagher no. So they obviously kicked us out of their space. They didn't want us in there because they compete against us. So we went downstairs in the same building. But I remember as I was agonizing over, do I go to GBS? Do I not? Do I stay? Do I just go off and do my own thing completely? There were a lot of different opportunities that had presented themselves. My friends that were at Gallagher, they just kept saying, you don't want to go to GBS. They have a bad culture. There's a lot of different things you do not want to go over there. But then when I would drill deeper and I would ask them, okay, can you give me an example of this? I really don't want to go somewhere where the culture is bad. I just don't. I've worked at companies where the culture is just toxic. And what happened was I ended up doing business as GBS Retire in the marketplace for a couple of years under a contract. So I did retirement plans. Our team did retirement plans under that for a couple of years. And it was always good. But you're in the dating phase, right? And that's what we described it as. We were in the dating phase for a couple of years. So of course, when you're dating, things are great. It's amazing, right? They're shiny or whatever. It's when you get married that you really find out what you're getting yourself into. So I had to take that leap of faith, and it's been awesome. They have a great culture, and it's been really fun to work there. So we do the retirement plans for a lot of their clients, right? So they do the benefits, or the benefit broker, and then we're also part ultimately of the Levitt Group. So the Levitt Group is I think it's the 7th or 8th largest privately held P&C, property and casualty insurance company in the country. They're in about 40 states now. They're all over the country. I'll get to that in a minute, but so right now we are distributing through, we get referrals. We have a lot of referral partners that we work with, right? Because we don't focus specifically on helping on the wealth management side. And there's a lot of advisors that don't do that. And let me describe that for a minute, right? So the perfect client,
and this is important too, right? Because I think that I didn't know this before I got into this world either, but people don't understand, like when they go and work for a company that offers them benefits, whether that's healthcare, retirement plans, whatever that may be, there are brokers in this world that help those companies with that. So because there's a bunch of different companies that offer these services. The brokers, in this case, it's GBS, they can go to them and say, look, I want health benefits, I want medical, dental, vision, I want whatever that is, a 401k. Yeah. And these brokers help the companies find those things. So when you're talking about your CEOs or your CFOs, they don't know all the intricacies of this. They go to a broker who's an expert in this to help them figure out what's best for their employees, manage costs, and make sure that the company can still run while offering awesome benefits. So there's a whole world that I don't think people understand is out there, but it's where we live. And so when people ask, like, what do you do? Or who are your partners? I tell them employee benefit brokers, and they kind of go, I don't know what that is.
What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Right? It's like French,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, we joke all the time. One, that you're not in business to run a 401k plan, right?
Yeah.
You hire us. We're here to help. It's what we do every day. But the 401k and what we do and how we manage it, it's like an 8-wheeled bicycle. There's so much going on. The typical financial advisor, right? They're very good at helping individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most advisors are really good people. They're very good at building out investments, helping people through a lot of tough times in their lives. As an advisor, right, they're wearing so many different hats because they're dealing with a human emotion, they're dealing with people's money, they're dealing with their lifestyle, their livelihood, whatever. But that is probably 1/10 of what we do is that investment piece and kind of building that out because we're helping the company, hey, create a menu. We're helping them monitor those funds, do that. But today, if you went through my day, I did some prospecting. I met with some prospective clients. I met with some, I did a lot of emails and things like that, but it was mainly around consulting questions for people that aren't even our clients, kind of helping them through, hey, we have this 401k, we bought this company, we had this merger and acquisition, we did this. Can we still contribute to their plan? Well, it depends. Is it an asset purchase? Is it a stock purchase? Is it these different things? They're like, well, I don't even know where to begin, right?
Yeah.
So it's like they have no idea, but that's why we're there to help them is we know a lot, but we always run into things that we don't understand, right?
Yeah.
I think it's with anything in life, can you find the answer? Do you know where to go to find that answer? And we become very proficient at that. So I think we work a lot with CEOs, CFOs, HR people. A lot of it is really the HR folks, right? They're a lot, or the benefit, administrator at a company or whatever. And we work with companies that they have 1 or 2 employees, all the way up to groups that have 5,000 or 6,000 employees that are publicly traded, that have companies or employees all over the world.
Is
Everything
there a
in
sweet
between.
spot with that?
Yes.
Is there a spot where it's like, okay, you're small and I know you want to offer this to your employees and that will happen, but it's probably going to be a little bit more expensive for you. Does it scale well?
Yes. So it does. And there's going to be different service levels, just like with anything, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, the big, we work with a few very large companies, like I mentioned, they offer certain benefits, but they have people that all they do day in and day out is their 401k, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have their own counsel. They have all these different folks. You may have that company, right, that has 5 or 6 or 7 people. They finally are hiring people that are demanding, hey, I want benefits, I want this. They're trying to attract and retain employees. They're going to set up a 401k.
Yeah.
It's scalable because there are products and services and the ability to create, there are solutions for all sizes of plans.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter, like I said, if you're small, mid, whatever. Our perfect client, honestly, if I had to describe a perfect client like I described a perfect job, right, is probably 50 to 100 employees, a retirement plan that's probably $5 to $10 million. And I know maybe this sounds bad, but they appreciate every single thing you're doing, right? They appreciate, they couldn't do it without you. Not that the big groups could, right? We're amazing. We're the best. We're once again, no ego at all, but
never have.
Never going to. It's not coming. It's not here. It's not in me. But it's that $5 to $10 million plan that has 50 to 100 employees where they're just on the cusp, right? They're getting bigger, they're growing, but they really rely on your expertise, and you can really help their employee base a lot, because not only are we helping the employer, right? I say we do education meetings. We do those education meetings. We'll sit down with employees. That's what I did a lot of at the first of my careers. I wore a lot of hats, but you're sitting down with employees, you're meeting with them, you're giving them recommendations. A lot of these people have never met with an advisor. They can't afford it. They think, I don't need this. I'm going to be fine. I'm invincible. I'm 22 years old, right?
Yeah.
I have 40 years till retirement. But when you see the light bulb go on in their head and they get it, they're like, oh, I can do 5%, or I can do $50 a paycheck or $20 a paycheck, and I'm going to have how much at retirement if I'm consistent and keep at this? And I can have more money when I retire than I have today just by doing a little bit. Oh, and my employer benefit could be $500,000 or whatever it is at retirement. It's just so fun to see them get excited about it. So I kind of, circling back to crypto, I love and hate that crypto is getting so many people into investing, and the Robinhoods are getting so many people into investing. Because for a while, right, the market's straight up. You could just invest in anything. You're going to make money. Now It's the active managers that are doing the research with the boots on the ground. They're doing extremely well. If you're buying an index, you're buying an index. That's fine. But if you were just buying companies because you're like, hey, my cousin's, uncle's, son's, whatever said buy this or Dogecoin or whatever, and there's no actual value, like it's going to come down one day. But I think it's good that people are more excited. I mean, I'm a millennial, right? Gen Z is so much more excited about investing than any other generation before because it's so much more easily accessible to them.
Yeah.
Which I'm excited about.
Well, Robinhood kind of gamified it, right?
Yes.
It almost made it a game of, and I remember this was years ago when I got into Robinhood for the first time, and it got a little bit stressful because I was trying to win every stock purchase. I was like, oh, I want to buy this low, and then when it goes up, I get all excited and I want to sell it. And so I'm watching every day and trying to see what's happening. And so it just got to be so stressful that it got where I was just like, look, I'm just going to put it somewhere, not think about it, and try and be consistent. Just kind of dump it in there.
Well, and we show this chart in a lot of our education meetings. Compliance, once again, doesn't love this chart, but it's a real life example of a client that my grandpa started working with, that my dad worked with. And by the way, I didn't share this part of the story. I never got the opportunity to work with my dad or grandpa at all. There's still a family business in Logan, Utah. It's Harold Dance Investments, 4th North in Maine. I don't work there. My family has nothing to do with it. My little brother's a CFA. He's in the business. He owns a financial advisory firm. He has nothing to do with it. My little brother works for my other little brother, right? We all have nothing to do with that. But I never got the chance to work with them. But this is a client that I eventually did end up working with later on in life. They started out doing $10 a month. It probably, at this point, is 50, 60 years ago, right? Did an average of about $200 over time. So ended up doing a little more than $300 at the end. But literally the only thing they did was just increase those contributions. They were in the same investment that whole time. Didn't make a change. And it's an investment category, right, that everybody has in their retirement plan. Guess how? So they put in about 90 grand over 40 years. How much do you think that it grew to? This is a real world client. I mean, I have statements.
I'm so bad at compound interest math.
You don't love it? I mean, you love it.
I love it when it works for me, but I don't know the math off of the top of my head, but it has to be $1 million.
$2.4 million.
Wow.
So she put in $200 a month on average, right? Wow. She was in one investment this entire time. Obviously, she loved it. Even when she was retired, didn't need to take the risk, she would not change this investment. But it's just an example of the power of consistency, right? And it's the power of compound growth. And compound growth obviously is related, a lot of times you think of it with investing, but it's every aspect of our life. You put in a lot of time with working out. You put a lot of time in with your kids or your business or a podcast or a passion or whatever. You may not see any improvement for a long time, right? Even when you work out, right? There's all those sayings, after 4 weeks, you probably see it. 8 weeks, someone close to you might see it. After 12 weeks, other people are going to see it if you're consistent with eating and working out. But you're going to get to the point where, like with investing, where that compound interest gets really fun, right? And a lot of times it's that there's a lot of calculators, right, that you get to that $1 million mark and, 10% of $1 million, that's a lot of money. That's more than most people make in a year, right? That's $100,000. But 10% on $1,000, does that get you excited? Doesn't get you excited. But you still are earning the same percentage, right? You're still doing the same thing, but it's just that unseen compounding over time with everything in your life. So that's why I always go back to it's consistency over it wins over everything, right? It just does.
Which is so interesting because we have this on a small scale on our work YouTube channel, which is like a small win for us because we started it about a year ago where we started getting serious. And so you just see whether it's view count, subscriber count, whatever you want to look at. It's just kind of slowly growing. We'd have a video pop and it would pop. And then over the last 2 months, our channel is like almost gone up 5 times in just 2 months, right? And so it's just starting to do this big, but we're consistent. We put out videos, 1 or 2 or 3 videos a week. We make sure that we're responding to things and we get people engaged. And now it's just as that grows, now every time we would fight so hard to get 1,000 views on a video. And now when we release a video with our subscriber count, we get 1,000 views in a day. And so it's just one of those, or it'll be some pop like that. Others are it's 1,000 views in a week, but still it took us a year on some videos to get that. So it's just kind of, I really appreciate that mindset of just you be consistent and you don't really see a lot at first and it's like, why am I doing this? And then things will grow.
Well, even I'm going to share just a little more personal stuff right now. So like even with my little kids, right? Those that have kids will understand this. So my little kids, right? They're not the most consistent human beings, right? And they aren't, right? They're learning that's a trait that they're learning, nature over nurture or whatever you want to say, right? But they have like a bank account where we started to help them fund it. And so they'll sometimes, if they earn something big, like the book I gave you. So I said, if my son, right, if you read this, he's 9, he's a freak. He's a freak in a good way. He's very, very intelligent. So we had him read it and do a book report on this. And he did it in, I don't know, 3 days. So he's just that type of kid, right? But he got $50 for it, for reading it. Because it's such an important book and has so many good lessons. And he's starting to like say things and just
I'm going to put it in front of the camera so they can see it.
And I'm not getting paid anything to show you this, but this is an awesome book, right? It's a #1 New York Times bestseller. It's an awesome book. I was there when he announced to a group of people that he was writing this book, what he was going to be talking about, and he started teaching us a little bit about it. I was at a meeting out in St. Louis with a couple hundred people. But anyway, digressing, he got $50. We encouraged him. His savings account has like $150. It's not a lot of money. We're like, hey, boss, you should take some of this money and put it in there. And I'm like, you earned a whopping 3 cents this month in interest.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that's not a lot of money. It's not this, not the other. So I went through all of the different things that I have as far as passive income and our family has as far as passive income. And I added it all up and I went through some different things with him. And I'm like, a lot of these started really small. They started as, hey, I'm going to just add to this and do this or buy into this. And honestly, our passive income is more than the average American makes in a year.
Yeah.
And I don't own any real estate. Okay, a little bit, not a lot. I mean, a couple hundred, like probably $100,000 or so in real estate. That's it. I mean, very outside of my house. Your house doesn't count as a freaking
Your
investment.
house is beautiful.
I mean, thank you. But it's like, but I just went through that with him. I'm like, Boston, Katie, your mom and I, 10 years ago, our net worth was nothing. It was absolutely zero. We grew it into this because of a lot of the lessons that you're going to learn in that book. But the biggest thing is we were consistent with a lot of things. And we knew where we were going. We didn't know how we were going to get there. Nobody does, right?
Yeah.
And one day I'll grow up and figure out what I really want to do with my life, right? We'll all get there, right?
Yeah.
But it's like Boston, like we have that income. Some of it is from different investments that we've done that just have done really well, right? Or it's passive consulting, or I do on the side, or whatever it is. It's passive income where I don't really have to do anything and it comes in. So I'm like, yeah, you're 3 cents a month, buddy. At 9, that may not seem like a lot, but some of the investments that I have where my parents encouraged me to do them, and now one of those is $1,200 a month now. But I started it when I was a kid, right? So it's just, once again, I'm trying to teach them it's that consistency. Because some weeks they'll get $8 for their chore money. Some weeks they'll get 2.
Yeah.
Or some weeks my wife's like, no, you get crap because you didn't do anything, right? But it's that consistency,
Well, and I wanted to set up an account for my kids that is kind of a surprise for them. And again, if they listen to this, I won't divulge too much, so just in case. But they have a little job where, and I think it's brilliant. I got it off of a guy on LinkedIn where they went around to their neighbors and they said, look, for $5 a month, we'll take your garbage cans out and we'll bring them back in. So they've been doing that now for probably 2 years. That's awesome. And they've got a handful of people in the neighborhood that are super nice, and they'll tip them, and they'll like super great neighbors and all this stuff. Yeah. And so they go out, and today it snowed, or yesterday it was snowing, and they went out and they did their garbage cans. So there are hard days and there are other days where it goes by fine. But so they earn this money, and then what I'm doing is I'm taking and kind of not just matching it, but more and just putting it into an account.
That's awesome.
Jeremiah has it, if you remember Jeremiah from the spring.
Yeah.
And so that was one of those things where I just don't look at it for a while, and then I go in there and I'm like, oh, like this is actually grown pretty nice. And I think they'd lose their minds if they knew how much was in that, because they think $20 is a ton of money. And so it's just kind of like,
it's not. I mean, I can get a couple bananas now for $20, right?
Exactly.
Maybe.
No, but they'd lose their minds. But it's fun to see that consistency for myself. And then when they turn 16 or 18 or whatever, who knows what I'll do with that? But it'll just be kind of this like surprise. Here's a car. Here's college. Whatever. Yeah. So it's pretty fun to teach the kids and figure stuff out that way.
And my dad and my grandpa, right? Because I was that weird kid. It's like my dad and grandpa were very transparent on like what was set aside for us, right? And it was my dad putting money away, and it was, hey, you're going to have this money at 20. You can use it for college or a wedding or whatever, or you can let it grow. You can let it consistently grow. I decided I was going to work 3 jobs and let it grow. And that is now turned into something that's been awesome. It's been a great thing. But I think, I don't know, and there's no right or wrong way to do it, but I think it's so fun to teach our kids, to show our kids to, I think if your kids, it doesn't matter what they do with their lives, right? I mean, you and I, we'll figure out what we want to do, right? And one day we'll figure that out. But I think it's just showing them the passion you have at what you do, I think will rub off on them.
With you being in finance and you're successful, and as you've mentioned, you've got the passive income stuff happening, you have a beautiful house, you have, by all financial measures, I would say you're successful. What does money mean to you? What is money in your mind?
So it reminds me of the Forky little clips, what is money? What is this? What is that? No, I think so money, right? I mean, it's a means of barter, right? But what money does for people is it just amplifies whatever their habits or traits are, right? If you're a dick with a little bit of money, you're going to be a huge dick with a lot of money, right? If you have no ego and you're perfect like me, you're going to just be even more perfect, right? Perfect. Just going to get even better. But no, money, I mean, it's so funny because so many podcasts ask about this, right? So many books, so many different things. I mean, even when I was listening to today, it's like, do you hear? So the people that have money or have even like FU money, whatever that means to you, they're never, most of them are not going to say that money is a problem, right? That money is an issue. They're not going to complain about money being the root of all evil. It's the people that don't have it, right? It's the people that don't have money. There are more ways today to make money than there ever have been. There's more opportunities. You can reach more people, right? You guys are doing the YouTube videos. You've done TikTok. You've done a lot of things, right? You can monetize really anything. I know there's people that I've talked to, even kept up with in different man games things that, I mean, they find these little niches and consistently move to different niches, right? Or they find something that they're consistent with and continually do well at it, right? There's just so much opportunity for that. I think money allows you to be more of yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that a lot, and I've seen this more on like the business side than I have the individual person side. Again, I'm sheltered. I'm where we are and family and everything else. But when money is a problem, meaning not enough of it, I think that it's hard. It makes the decision-making process difficult, and not for everybody. I understand that everybody's different, but I feel like that money is a tool to open up certain freedoms that people can or may not be able to enjoy otherwise. But yeah, the love of money being the root of all evil, I think is definitely, you can see that where there are unhappy people who do not have money. There are unhappy people who have all of the money in the world. And on this flip side, there are happy people on both ends too. So I don't know that you can point at money and say, this is what makes me happy, but it does offer you some freedom to enjoy things, not just you, but for me, it's to kids and my spouse and everything else.
Well, and it allows you to do the things that you, not only you want to do, but it helps you with whatever your goals are, right? I mean, I'm LDS, right? I mean, you have to have money to be able to send your kid on a mission if that's what you want to do, right? You have to be able to make change or create change. You have to have resources. It can be money, it can be influence, it can be power, it can be whatever. But if you have those things, it's going to lead to money. But money shouldn't be your goal. Your goal should be to help people, to give, right? If you provide enough value, money will happen. It'll come, right? It's how much value or how much you're able to give to other people that, I mean, how you're compensated on the problems you solve, right? I mean, we say, I mean, I joke with a TPA partner of ours, which is a third-party administrator. For those that don't know, they help companies.
It's a whole nother world.
Oh my gosh, dude. It is a whole nother world. They're the freaking, we think we're nerds. They're the pension nerds. They have their own conference where if I went there, I'd probably be the dumbest person there. It's ASPA. It's fun. I've been. It's amazing. But I feel dumb when I go because these people are day in and day out looking at plan documents that govern your plan. So think of a plan document as, your car has an owner's manual. It doesn't probably have a physical one anymore because they do everything digitally, but it has an owner's manual. The plan document for your 401k is the owner's manual. Got to follow that. So the TPAs, right, they help to create those, write those, even advocate at Capitol Hill for the changes every 6 years that happen to those, or every year now, it seems like they're passing something new in our world that completely changes it. Probably most people on this that are listening don't have any idea that there have been 2 of the biggest changes in my world have happened since 2019. But people are like, no, I haven't seen any change. There are huge changes happening, but it's just drastic. But the reason I was bringing this up, there's this TPA that I call. I only call when I have major problems. I mean, I joke all day long. It's like we are obviously good at what we do, but when I have something that I just can't figure out or I need to confirm, I call her. I mean, I talked to her twice today. So, I mean, obviously, the end of the year, there's all sorts of big issues that come up. But she is so good about explaining it or going through it. And if she doesn't have the answer, she knows she can get that answer. But it's just getting to that, right? You're compensated on how much you can help people change, right? How much you're able to give. And that's with your kids too, right? Yeah. Your relationships with your children are going to be based on how much one-on-one time. And sometimes you're not going to be able to give quality time, right? Yeah. Like this. I'm loving this quality time with you, Eric.
Thank you. I love this too.
This is awesome. But sometimes you're going to be giving a lot of time, but it's not quality time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a couple weeks ago, because baseball is life on and off in my life, even though I played a lot of it. I love it. But a couple weeks ago, I was sat in a couple different batting cages for 7 hours of my week. That's what I did. Was that quality time? No, it wasn't. It was fun. It was good. But you have so many kids churning through it, these 2 different teams.
Was this you hitting? So you were making the kids throw to you the whole time?
Absolutely. For 7 hours straight. And I was hitting bombs.
Nobody can strike me out.
I am practicing for the home run derby that I missed that I'm going to win.
Yes. Yeah, the challenge was 9-year-olds, whoever can strike me out. And I was in the cage for 7 hours.
They couldn't get me. And I'm still a little sore. Things happen. But it goes back to that, right? like, and I think a lot of us, I said that there's so many avenues to make money or whatever, and there's more things competing for our time now than there ever have been. We have our phones, right? We have a supercomputer in our pocket, right?
Yeah.
I still want to go back to my 3rd grade teacher, Miss Nelson, that said, you're never going to have a calculator. I'm like, I got more than that in my pocket. We've all said that. We've all thought that. But I want to find her because she was very strict about that.
You don't hold grudges, but if you did...
I don't have an ego. I don't hold grudges. No, there's none of that.
We will find her.
We will find her. But I say that begrudgingly, right? And you know me, I joke a lot, but she was one of my favorite teachers ever. Yeah. She was very strict. I remember her being strict, and I remember crying one time because I always wanted to get everything right and get 100% on everything. And there was one thing I just didn't understand. I did it wrong. I didn't do well at it. And she was very strict about it. I knew the expectations. I couldn't talk my way out of that, which I could do with a lot of other teachers. She was like, no, you got a 70%. You didn't do well. And in 3rd grade, for me,
it's devastating.
It was devastating. I don't know why, but it was devastating. Right? It wasn't that I wanted the cool shoes or whatever. It's like I wanted to do well in that class. I think because I really respected her because she was she was an awesome teacher.
Yeah.
She was very good, and we all knew where we were. And I think that goes back to 2, right, is a lot of our lives, right, a lot of the things or a lot of the problems that go wrong, it boils down to communication. Just clear and concise communication, right? And if let's say that there's something that consistently goes wrong in your life.
Yeah.
No matter what, it's like you need to look inward. That's probably you, right? And none of us like to admit that we're wrong, which I'm never wrong, you know. Or just ask my wife. I'm always wrong, right? Perspective. I could give you a whole story about perspective. I love, but it's just clear and concise communication. Just setting those boundaries, setting those expectations, whether it's at work with our kids, at school, at church, whatever. Right? It's just setting those clear expectations. But the other piece of that is you set those, right? You need to follow through with whatever that is, right? Kids are a big barometer of this, right? They'll call you on your crap. Be like, and especially our kids, they'll remember, oh, we said we would watch a movie or we said we would do this or whatever. It's like,
that was 3 months ago.
Where did you, like Beckham will walk down, our 7-year-old will walk down to us and be like, you said we're going to watch a movie and do this and this and this. And I'm like, dude, how in the world do you remember that?
But you didn't hear me say, go put your socks away, right? But
dude, socks. Let's do a whole podcast about leaving socks out. That kid, I love Beckham. You know Beckham, you know Boston, you know my family.
So you're my son's baseball coach, which is fantastic. That's how we met.
Yeah.
That's how we got you to make it.
I didn't make them pitch to me for 7 hours.
Yeah, good.
I didn't.
Good. Yeah. It's funny when you talk about clear communication. I think a lot of that comes from, there's a cultural component to that.
Yes.
So I spent some time in Russia, and the communication in Russia is very different than it is here. It's a lot more direct, and it's a lot more, so you think of like learning a new language. If here, at least our culture, if somebody is from a different country and they're learning English and they're trying to talk to you, I mean, we do as best as we can to try and figure out, and like, oh, you're doing great. Keep going. Like, I can understand you. Everything's fine, even if they're making mistakes. In Russia, you go up there and you start talking to them like, I don't understand you. I'm not going to talk to you. And then do you speak right? Do you speak okay? I'll talk to you. I'm not talking to you. But what that does, and you grow to appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think that it rubs a lot of people the wrong way. In movies, they're portrayed this way as well. They're very direct. They're very blunt.
It's their culture.
It is their culture. But when I got used to that and I come home and here it's a different culture to where it's like, hey, so I remember this story very vividly. I got home, my mom's like, hey, do you want to go to this family thing? I was like, no. I just leave it at that. And she's like, well, why not? I don't want to. And that was just, well, why are you being mean? And so that was given off as being mean by being direct. And I didn't feel like I needed to give another excuse because that's what I'd come from. It's just for that time, I got used to it. If you were asked a question, you don't have to sugarcoat it. You don't have to be nice. If you ask people in Russia, how are you? They will tell you, I'm doing terrible. Like, this is a horrible day. My dog died. Everything's wrong. Everything's miserable. Or they'll say it's a good day. Here, it's like, hey, how are you doing? Oh, great. Like, that's just the knee-jerk reaction.
Things are great.
So I think culturally, and even in America, it's very different from here to New York to LA or whatever, from different geographic areas. I think that culture. So communication is, the concept of clear communication is very important, and I 100% agree. It's very hard to execute when you're dealing with someone from a different culture.
And I think that goes into different backgrounds, right? I mean, different cultures, different expectations. And it also leads to just knowing your audience, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to talk with your 7-year-old about the same thing you're going to talk to, a publicly traded company about, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have different things. But when it comes to your clients too, like, you're going to have different clients. You're going to have some that are more, I want to take care of my employees. I mean, they're more in the HR world. The CFO's like, I want to get it for the cheapest cost.
Yeah.
The CEO's like, I don't care, revert back to them a lot of times. So it's like, but it's knowing your audience, right? I mean, I have clients that are in New Jersey, New York. They come across as assholes. They just do.
This podcast just went into the explicit zone.
Do you want to go there?
Let's okay.
Let's go there. But that's just their culture.
Yeah.
A lot of them, they'll be like, da, da, da. They're screaming at you, whatever. And then they're like, hey, we appreciate that you're so direct, because most of the people we work with are not. I'm like, okay, all right. I get it now. And then you know how to communicate with them because you figured it out. You've bonded over whatever it is. You finally figured out the way to communicate with that person. And all of us miss the mark all the time, right? It's very interesting. I remember very vividly as a kid, my dad could be pretty intense on certain things, and we were in Vegas ordering something from like a McDonald's or something like that. We get up, we order. I think my dad was pretty direct, like ordering. I don't even know why this happened. This lady got out of her car that was behind us. There was a big line. I think a lot of people were frustrated. She comes up. We were in a rental car. My dad was driving, and we were just in the car. She comes up. She's like, I appreciate you being so direct. I appreciate that. It's like, it makes me feel at home, like I'm in New York. And I don't remember why I remember this as a kid. My dad's like, I'm not from New York. I was just, trying to get my order in. They weren't understanding it or whatever. But this lady appreciated that. Like, it's just so bizarre. Like, the things, one, that you remember as a kid, but two, it's like, why did she appreciate that, right? I think it just made her feel at home. I don't know where I was going at with this, but it's like, I vividly remember that and that communication style, because it was like a New Yorker or a New Jersey person or whatever, and it's just, it made that lady feel at home.
Well, and there are other people that would be rubbed the wrong way with that, and they would think that your dad is the one who's being the dick in that situation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Covey who was saying, like, we judge other people by their actions and we judge ourselves by our intentions. Yeah. And so we're acting a certain way, but I've got a motive that I understand that you don't, and my motive is justifying this action. Well, all you see is the action. which may go against what is motivating you. And so we kind of have these misunderstandings frequently.
And I think that I like that. So there's a guy that he did our landscaping, and he's become like a really good family friend. And he was at our house today. We're still consistently fixing issues from when we built our house, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But he's fixing an issue today, and he has so much, because we've had him do so much. He's been at our house so much. We've had him over for dinner. We've become really good friends with them, that he has so much perspective. So when we talk about something, he has all this background on that subject that he just knows instantly what we're talking about. There's certain things we just don't even have to tell him. He's like, yeah, I know I've got to move that from here to there, and I've already done it. I'm like, it's just awesome.
Yeah.
Where, like you said, a lot of times we're talking to people, they don't understand our intentions. They don't understand where we're coming from, or we don't understand where they're coming from, or what they're trying to do. And we completely misinterpret what their intent is, or what they're trying to do, or whatever that is. And that's our job as human beings, is to try to figure out, like you said, for everybody, it's going to be different communication. It's going to be different. It goes back to just knowing your audience, which is impossible to do when you're just meeting someone.
Well, and it's that there's the golden rule and then the platinum rule, or whatever you want to call it, of like treat others how they want to be treated rather than treat them how you want to be treated. Because that New Yorker may not want to be treated how I feel comfortable being treated, and vice versa. So, but I think it's an impossible thing to do, but it is a good idea that we all should try and strive for. And it's hard to take yourself out of that emotionally charged situation and be able to say, okay, take a breath. They're not evil.
Yes.
Let's figure this out. But
yeah, I mean, they're coming at it from a certain perspective, and you need to understand whatever that perspective is, whether it's right or wrong, or if you agree with it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, right or wrong is a topic that
no, we could talk about it all day.
Let's go back to sports, if you would. Again, we talked about how you were Jared's coach. What do you get out of sports? What is it about sports that appeals to you?
I mean, it's probably just kind of the canned answer. You're probably getting a lot, but it's that I think a lot of in life right now is it's hard to measure, right? We talked about, maybe there's some financial success or whatever, but with sports, it's finite, right? Mm-hmm. There's a score. Yeah. There's a winner and a loser, and it's measurable. I like that. Whether I win or lose, obviously I hate to lose.
Yeah.
Who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Eric loses gracefully, but he never loses.
I don't remember losing.
Do you know what that feels like?
I got a short-term memory.
I mean, you're humble. Maybe it's because you never lose.
I actually had a shirt in high school that said humble but still the best. It was my favorite shirt, and it got lost. And
yeah, I mean, you could create another shirt like that. You could start a whole brand, right? You should do that. But I think for sports, for me, it's just that it is measurable. It's competitive. You're stacking up against another person. I mean, I loved how you described how Man Games started to me, right? As it was a bunch of your buddies trying to figure out who's the best athlete, not who's the best basketball player or baseball player or whatever. Who's the best athlete? And you're able to measure that, right? We don't need to talk about, measuring in this Man Games because, I think it was off. There was some math that was wrong. I don't know what it was.
No. If you're last, you're first, I think is your new mantra in this last Man
went
Games.
The other way. I mean, I did give Wayne his prize after that because he wasn't able to be there. I don't think he appreciated that.
Yeah, we'll have to show a picture of what the prizes were for the 8th place team. That's one of my favorite things at Man Games. But it is interesting with sports. I think I mentioned this on another one too, but I judge people pretty quickly. Yeah. And I think that sports for me is the quickest way for me to see the base human that I'm interacting with.
Yeah.
To your point, if you're losing, how does that person handle losing? At the same time, how does that person handle winning, right? Yeah. And I really appreciate what you said. That question was not me when I asked, like, how would you describe Eric's vibe? That would be awesome if I was asking my own questions. But when you said, like, I'll quietly beat you, I think that I have a lot of respect for people who they win with class and they lose with class, right? Yes. And so there are people who will win and they're pounding their chest and they're taunting you because they've beat you. At the same time, there are people who will lose and they'll just break things and destroy things and just give up on all kinds of things. And so for me, whether it's right or wrong, it's a judge of character for me to hone in on, okay, I'm playing all of these guys at sports. Let's see how they deal with this situation and let's see how they handle me succeeding or failing in the sport that they're good at. And I say that at the beginning of the Man Games. Carson could hurt people in volleyball.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that he didn't tells me something about him. And I appreciate that from him. So I really like that about sports. I like being able to assert my will over people in certain aspects, but at the same time,
What sports would those be?
I like being able to see people in their element too that can
Yeah.
beat me and just seeing like, how did they get there? And it's the theme of this whole conversation, I think, is it's not just something that they were born that way. Over time, they've put in hundreds of thousands of hours or whatever that may be to get to that point. But it's fun.
And I think, obviously Malcolm Gladwell has done a lot of this, and there's different thoughts on it now, right? The whole 10,000 hour rule that he writes about, talks about, and that's all great and everything else. But I want to go back to what you said, right? There are a lot of people that are born with innate talent.
Yeah.
That don't have to work hard towards whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, we know those people, right?
Yeah.
We wish we were those people. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have to work hard at this or that or whatever.
Well, here's the thing is that you have some of those things in your life where somebody's looking at you
Absolutely.
and saying, Taylor just has that. And I wish I did. He doesn't have to spend half the time I do on that, but he's still better than me. So for sure we see those people.
We see those people, and we are those people to other people, right?
Yeah.
It's a perspective thing. It's a gratitude thing. But it's like we all know the guy in high school or the guy here, the guy where they rode on talent.
Yeah.
And they didn't put the time in. They didn't show up. They didn't go to practice, but they still started or they played or whatever. There's no resentment here at all, if you can't tell. But it's like they made it a certain way, but had they put the work in, they could have been a professional athlete and whatever that was, but they didn't put that in.
Yeah.
And some of those people, they've done extremely well because they've been able to pivot that talent over here to talent in whatever else.
Yeah.
Maybe they're very good looking or whatever else and everything else, but it's like for those that have both and they don't live up to their potential, that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
It drives me up the wall because it's like, we all have those things that we excel at. And I think, there's so many different ways to think about it, right? There's people that say, oh, you should focus on your talents and that's where you should go and do, or you should be a generalist and just try to be good at everything. We're naturally going to try to be good at everything. Most of us, right? We're going to try to excel at every aspect of our lives, but there's that whole fallacy of balance, right? Because if you're giving more time towards work, other things are going to suffer.
Yeah.
If you're giving more time towards your family, work is just going to suffer.
Yeah.
It's what are your goals? And I think it's going to be a time and a season, right? Fourth quarter for you guys, I know is really busy.
Yeah.
For us is insanely busy. For the benefit side, it's busier than me. I think they're extremely busy, but it's like that. So work is going to, it's going to go up. You're not going to be with your family as much. You're not going to be doing those other things. I think it's just trying to figure out where we want to go. Having those, it goes back for me to being able to visually see what it is that we want out of whatever it is we're trying to achieve. And I think we all lose sight on that, right? I keep looking over to this basketball in the corner, right? Like I'm swirling into this basketball, but it's like we all can lose sight or take our eye off the ball or take our eye off the prize. Like it happens all the time where it's like, I'm going towards this, whatever it is. Like maybe it's just, hey, I want to save to go on a trip, or I want to go do this, or I want to do this with my kids consistently. And for whatever reason, life happens and we forget to do those things that were so important to us and still are, but we just forgot about them.
Well, and I think this is what is so beautiful about the human condition is that humans, because in the example you just gave, and we talked about this on the last podcast that hasn't been released yet, so it's kind of cool that we're jumping into this, but that balance, or I had described it as a teeter-totter. We use two things, right? It was like, okay, there's work and then there's time with the family. So if there's time with the family, if you want to increase that, well, work has to suffer. What's so unique about the human experience is that there are 100 things on this scale. And so it's not just work, it's not just family, it's health, it's wellness, it's how you diet, it's how you exercise, it's going to be how you interact with humans in your relationships, it's cleanliness around the house, it's personal hygiene, there's so many things.
Are you trying to tell me something?
What do you think all these bars of
Yeah, what was that about?
But that's what's so hard to balance is you're right. Like I want to save for a trip.
Yeah.
Well, my water line broke, right? And so it's just there's so many different elements in the human experience, which goes back to we never really know the story behind the person that we're interacting with, what they could be going through. And even going back, so you're describing that person who's just born with this innate gift, whether let's take athletics.
Yeah.
They're born with this freak. We had a guy in high school who he set the school record in the 40-yard dash. He set the school record in squats, having never lifted before in his life. He set the school record in the bench press, having never lifted and is just a freak athlete.
Wow.
Colleges came to recruit him, and the day that they came to his workout day, he was sloughing school and smoking weed. And so it's like, oh, how could he have done that? How could he be so stupid? Well, as you go back and over time I learned his story, like there's so many things in the back that was going on in his life that nobody had any idea was happening.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I can see it sucks. I don't agree with what had happened or the decision he made, but I can kind of see how he got there and why.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of expectations on that, right? You're like, if you're that kind of athlete, you're expected to be somebody, and maybe he doesn't want to be that person. And so there's just so much going on in humans that I think is beautiful and terrible and sad and awesome all at the same time.
I've loved like listening to the podcasts on Man Games that I've been able to, right? Because I feel like you dive deep into the human condition, right? And when I first met you, I didn't think you were.
I was just a pretty face.
You were just a pretty face, man. I just wanted to be around you. I couldn't figure it out. You smelled good. You used the good soaps. You did what you had to do. But you're asking deep questions and following up with those. I love that, right? And I feel like your natural ability to have conversations with really anybody, it shines in these. So I just wanted to, I mean, it's been great.
Well, it goes both ways. I mean, it's interacting with people who are able to express themselves as well. So it's not just me.
It's not just you. You're not just a pretty face either.
I'm not just a pretty face. All right, to get you out of here before midnight, let's get through a couple of these other questions.
How is that going to be possible?
I don't know.
We could talk for hours, man.
What do you think is the best food duo?
Food duo. Okay. I think it's always going to be a recency effect, right? You're going to think through the things that you've.
I have mine. I know mine. So
I don't know mine, honestly. Like, I love food. Food is life, just like baseball. There's baseball, there's food. I mean, there's kind of everything else below that, right?
Yeah.
Cleanliness is obviously way down here, according to Eric.
Who needs that?
Who needs cleanliness? I mean, I shower once a month. That's okay, right?
It's plenty. Especially when you're using Duke Cannon.
The secret weapon. I honestly... Right now, it's cold, right? So I had for dinner, I had a friend of mine who's in the industry. He had this great idea. He's like, dude, I'm going to be in town. I don't have probably time to see you. He's like, can I just order some food for your family? I'm like, sure. Nice. So we picked Market Street. He got us Market Street or whatever. I love their clam chowder and their sourdough bread. Okay. So I had that for dinner. I don't know if that's my favorite, but that's an awesome food duo for me.
That's a great duo.
So for me, and I haven't brought this around, but a lot of my deep-seated issues, which I don't have any, right? Because I'm perfect, of course.
But if I
did have those, comes back to, for me, it's a lot of experiences and family things. So, right, my oldest son, his name is Boston. The reason his name is Boston is, I mean, the Red Sox are amazing, but it's because I was able to go to Boston, the city, as a kid with my grandparents, with my dad, with my family. It just became the city that was just so important to our family. When you'd go to Boston with Grandma Ruth, which Grandma Ruth is the best human being on the planet, she would tell stories about people. And when she was older, when people were older, like, you don't know if they're talking about, specifically to her, if they were talking about someone that was a family member, a friend, a long-lost acquaintance, or whatever. She talked about everybody the same way. Yeah. She loved everybody, and everybody loved her. She would always order clam chowder from all these different places, and she would make me try it. I didn't like it. I didn't. I mean, New England clam chowder is different than the West Coast clam chowder. It's all a little different, right? But I didn't like it. When I learned to like it, when I didn't go to Boston, when actually after my dad had died, right? That's when I learned to like that. And my son Beckham, who plays on Boston's, Jared's team. Wow, if I could speak English, but he at Zupa's, he likes the white soup. That's New England clam chowder. But when he has it anywhere else, like good, I mean, honestly, Zupa's is good, but it's like, it's okay. Yeah. But if he has it like at fancy restaurants, or like we were in Scotland this year having awesome clam chowder. He's like, I don't really like that. I'm like, dude, who are you? You know how kids are. But it's like, I love clam chowder. Yeah. So that, I mean, it's probably because of the tie back to Boston, the city for me. That's probably why. What's yours?
I have two, so I'm going to cheat and I'm going to have two. One is the dessert. So chocolate and peanut butter, it's great.
Oh, it's amazing. That's a good duo.
Yeah, and Reese's, for those out there, especially like the holiday Reese's, where it's the eggs or the trees where they don't have the ridges.
Yes.
Those are perfect for me. And then
Not a Ridges guy, huh?
No, not a Ridges guy.
Okay.
And then steak and potatoes, like just a good steak with some potatoes.
So the other part of my meal tonight was steak with mashed potatoes.
Man, that was a great meal.
It was a lot of food. I should probably go work out, and then I probably should shower. I should probably.
Then
do
you
that.
shower out. Well,
Yeah.
it's
You don't
debatable.
have to.
No, there are needs and then there are wants.
Optional.
What 3 songs have been your jam recently?
3 songs have been my jam. Okay, you know me well enough that this is going to be a little long-winded. Okay,
I love it.
So, one of my favorite podcasts is the Model Health Show by Sean Stevenson. He is gone.
Second favorite to Man Games, but keep
Well,
going.
I mean, yeah, yours is up here, then
Yeah.
everyone else is about here. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's just
I get
so freaking good. It's
get it.
amazing. I mean, you probably have a couple million subscribers at this point.
Yeah, we're on our way.
You're on your way. It's that consistency thing, right? It's that consistency thing. So he talks about, I mean, he's not perfect, right? But it's the Model Health Show. He's talking about a lot of things that affect our health, and he dives deep because he has a background in nutrition, and he went to medical school, and I mean, not medical school, but he is a nutritionist. But he is one of the fittest, most knowledgeable people on a lot of different subjects. He talks about music and different aspects of music. He did a whole podcast of music about
awesome.
junk music and good music and podcasts and other things. Like, he's all about taking good things into your body in your entire life, right? Whatever it is, right? But so after I listened to that, it's like you can kind of start identifying that. It's like, Thunderstruck's amazing. That might be some junk music. It's an amazing song. It's great. You watch Iron Man and, stuff
Beautiful.
comes on. It's beautiful, right? Back in Black is one of my favorite songs. I have a whole radio station on iTunes.
See, I'm a Van Halen guy. So
Okay,
can we still be friends?
We can be friends.
All right,
We can be friends. We can jump together.
Yes.
We can jump. But honestly, like, I haven't been listening to as much music lately. And it's partially because of that. And I think it's just a time thing. Like, I've been trying to listen to more audiobooks and podcasts and things like that. But I would have to say, honestly, so working out lately, I've been listening to just Imagine Dragons, just kind of they have so many good songs from way back when they first started or whatever. So Imagine Dragons has been my jam lately.
That's super cool. I was at some conference where Dan
Reynolds.
He was speaking at it, and he was one of the coolest guys I've ever seen. He was just so genuine in this interview that it was really, really cool. And the question was, how do you keep putting out so many songs that do so well?
Dude, they were so consistent for so long.
Yeah. I really like them.
Yeah.
What's the oldest thing you have?
I'm gonna be dumb. Obviously, myself. I mean, I'm the oldest thing I have. I mean, you own yourself, right? The oldest thing I have that I can think of. I have this little. It was a little box that my grandpa had that has initials on it, that it would hold paper clips or whatever. And that's where I would keep my cash as a kid. The $20 that was, back then you could actually buy some stuff with that. Now it's
You could buy a house.
It's not even, dude, you could buy all sorts of stuff, but not in Biden's America. But anyway, I mean, I held my money in there or whatever. I just kept that through all these moves and everything else. My son Boston has it, and he puts some things in it or whatever. But my daughter Audrey, she pretty much just destroyed it. It's pretty much wrecked. But he still holds on to it or whatever.
Nice.
And I think you can see kind of a theme. It was a family thing, that my grandpa had.
Yeah.
That he ended up just giving to me, and I have it, and I love it. I mean,
That's
I'm sure there's
super cool.
older things that I have, right?
Yeah.
But that has some sentimental value.
That's really cool. I have the chance coming up on a different podcast through work to interview someone who's 106.
Wow.
And it's going to be awesome.
That's awesome.
So she was born in 1917. She was 24 when America got involved in World War II.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy. She was 52 when JFK was assassinated or whatever. It's mind-blowing to me. She's lived through everything, every major advancement. It's really cool. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
She probably has some really old stuff.
She probably does. Let's do 2 more, and then we'll get into the last 3 Man Games questions. So,
Okay.
Can you describe a moment when you were deliriously happy?
Deliriously happy. It's probably going to be cliche or whatever, but I was deliriously happy when my wife said yes to marry me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we all probably have that, we remember that moment, right? But
Yeah.
I was so happy. And for me, it was more, I could just see our future together and what we were going to create and our children and all these different things. So that's what made me deliriously happy about it. It was just the family that we were going to create.
That's super cool. Let's there's several here. What's
And she's never been wrong. She's perfect, right? She's never made a mistake.
Hey, I met her. She's awesome. I mean, the one mistake that I wouldn't say it's a mistake because that would be wrong of me, but she hasn't come to girl games yet.
It's true.
Yeah.
She hasn't done it.
What is something you've never told anyone?
Something I've never told anyone. Man, these are good questions. I shouldn't have complimented you about your deep questions before you're going to start stumping me on some of these. Something I've never told anyone. So I haven't like specifically told people this. I mean, my wife knows and a lot of people from high school and stuff know. So we talk about, so I think in high school sports, you probably wouldn't have liked me.
Yeah.
You talk about how people react to winning or losing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have any excuses for this, but when I would lose a tennis match in high school, especially senior year, junior year, I mean, there was a lot of things going on, not excuses, but I remember vividly losing my final match in high school tennis. I mean, I was supposed to win state. I should have easily taken state. Not like a brag. I wasn't first singles. Like I was third singles. I should have easily taken state. And I lost first round. I totally underperformed. I chucked my racket three, maybe four courts over. I bombed that thing. That took some strength. I don't tell people that because obviously I've grown a lot from that.
Yeah.
But that's something that doesn't represent who I am, and I'm disappointed that I did that.
Yeah.
So that's something I don't tell people. My wife was there. We were dating at the time. She saw it. My siblings saw it, which was not. It was just not. I was not a good example. I wasn't doing what I should have done, and I was so mad. I was deliriously pissed.
Yeah.
I was upset.
This again, not to make this something deep out of something that doesn't need to be, but when we go back again, the things that people are experiencing, you had set expectations for yourself, and you wanted to achieve them, right? And then to have that severe disappointment, I mean, we react in certain ways, and so.
I acted poorly. Yeah.
Who knows?
I'm a very passionate and emotional person. I definitely
that's
got
okay.
the best of me.
And that's what won her over, right? She
That's
was just like, I need someone with that much
I
passion.
mean, it was my good looks. It was my charm. And then, it was the passion.
And then it was the passion.
It was that.
So this is the last like crazy one, and then we'll get to the last three from Man Games that if you've watched any of them, you'll know what's coming. But
Okay.
When is a time in your life where you knew that you were in the exact spot that you needed to be?
Wow. I wanna go down this road a little bit. So I can think of a lot of different times, but I think sorry. I'm trying to build this up and describe this, right? So I think when my dad passed away, so I've told this story to a million people, right? It helps me cope with it, even though I don't like telling the story. But so I was 15 when my dad died, right? So it was almost 20 years ago, and it was a freak car accident. So anyway, we were on spring break. We were going to go up to Grand Targhee and go skiing, right? We're from Logan. It's not too far to go up there. I'm going to make this really short, but essentially we drove 2 cars to go there. We just couldn't fit the whole family and the skis and everything else. And you could actually afford to do it back then because gas was really inexpensive. So, there wasn't inflation. But anyway, we went to, if you've ever been, there's this little tiny road that goes past this earthen dam up past Rexburg that broke a long time ago and flooded the city below. It killed a lot of people, actually. But it's literally just like dirt in a field. There's nothing there. But I remember vividly, because it was the last thing I ever said to my dad, like I made some joke. I don't even know what I said, but I remember I made a joke, right? About, I think think I said like, that's one hell of a dam, or that's, you know, like some damn joke, some dad joke, right?
Yeah.
And my dad laughed, and he had my brother on my sister on his shoulders. He put him, you know, in the car, and then we went out to the highway, and there was a sign across the highway that described what happened, you know, on the dam. And even as a 15-year-old, I remember vividly that sign being a lot bigger than it actually is. This year, I finally went back to the place where my dad died. I had to do it. It was something that I just had to go back and do. But I think for me, I was in the right place. It's not the right time, but when my dad passed away, it was basically he got hit by a car that was coming. He didn't really see him. He flipped a Yui. It was my dad's fault, probably. This guy was coming. He slammed on his brakes, hit my dad's car, killed my dad instantly. My brother Tanner, who you've met, he's been at Man Games. Yeah. Luke's been at Man Games too. They were both severely injured in that wreck. Luke actually should have died. He should have passed away. But the reason I say I was in the right place at the right time is I wasn't emotional or whatever about it. Like, I didn't know what happened, but and it was just when cell phones were just becoming like a thing. They were really, really big, and they didn't really work that well. But I just had the foresight to get the cell phone and call 911. My dad, his car had like OnStar in it, so it actually called an ambulance as well, which having 2 ambulances probably is one reason why my little brother is still here today. And so there's obviously a lot done back out of that in my life, but I was supposed to be in the other car too, right? Like I was supposed to be in the other car. There was reasons why I didn't end up in the other car, but I was in the other car. I had the foresight to call. My mom just ran across the highway. I could have had 2 dead parents that day. I joke about it now because I can, but I'm like, Mom, what the heck were you doing? Why did you just run across? But I called, and 2 showed up, and there were a lot of other cool things that came out of that. But I'm a very religious person. I even prayed that night, like, why did my dad have to die, right?
Yeah.
And I felt just... To me, I felt, you know, whatever it is you believe in, right? But it's like I felt personally that I got an answer that it was his time to go, and that helped me. Obviously, my mom remembers it, I remember it, but I had to be there at that time, and it's really shaped things in my life for the better.
Yeah, sorry, you're good, man. It's so interesting. I wrote a little blog about this, about the biggest fears of my life and how they've changed. And I remember being a kid, and my dad owned some real estate, and it was in kind of a part of town that wasn't a good part of town.
Okay.
And so he'd have to like carry a gun on him and stuff as he would go and handle some issues. And so as a young kid, I would be so afraid that my dad wouldn't come back home.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest fear. And I've said this in other instances too. So my dad's mom died when he was 7 years old. She ended up getting cancer, and as a 7-year-old, his mom passed away.
Wow.
And so when I turned 7 years old, my mom got diagnosed with cancer.
Holy cow.
And so I remember as a kid crying, saying like, I don't want to be like Dad. And so my mom was in her humor was like, I don't want you to be like your dad either. He's lazy and he doesn't know what he's doing and all this stuff. It's like, no. Like, I don't want to lose my mom when I'm 7 years old, like Dad lost his mom. Oh. So 7-year-old Eric's biggest fear in life was losing his parents. And it's still a big fear of mine. Now Absolutely. They're older, and it's a different relationship. But now my biggest fear is losing my wife or my kids.
Absolutely.
And so when I hear your story, like you lived through 7-year-old to whatever age it would be, 33-year-old Eric's biggest fear.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what that's like. I can't imagine trying to tell that story. So I appreciate you for telling that story. My dad and mom got separated, and he's currently married to a different gal. And this was 2.5 years ago or so. Her son was in a car accident, and she lost her son. So now she has had to live through current Eric's worst nightmare, and to have it be that close and everything else. And now it's this close. Like there's just such a level. I love the human experience including the tragedies.
Absolutely.
Like there's so much that comes out of the tragedies. And what was crazy about my dad and his wife's story with the son is that they're in the hot. I mean, she has to go and she has to identify her son who's on a slab, which is just something you couldn't wish for anybody. But while that's all happening, multiple life flight flights are coming in and out. Multiple code blues are happening. And so, and that's in one hospital in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yeah.
You expand that nationally, and there's so much pain happening in the world that is just unimaginable. And it's this small element of Man Games, I think, that brings it full circle to me of, one, I want to try to do good in the world where we can. I know there are a lot of charities out there. I want to try and do it within Man Games that you saw with Brandon, that you've seen with like Brighter Futures and stuff like that. So being able to bring a little bit of happiness into the world of people who have experienced tragedy, I think is something that's really important. And then with the Man Games side of things, it's an environment where we can try to forget about the hard things for a weekend and then grow from that and try to go fix the hard things out of the weekend. So I really, the whole point of this is I appreciate you sharing that story.
Absolutely. No, and it's, and I think part of that too is that with Man Games, you're doing hard things. You're doing hard things with, at the beginning, a lot of them are strangers, but by the end, you've been doing all these hard things together and you bond over that, right? I mean, you can have a lot of great lifelong experiences. I mean, we all have friends that we played sports with growing up that are going to be our friends forever because we bonded while we were doing hard things together.
Yeah. No, you're awesome, man. That was great. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Who was not at this last Man Games who needs to be at the next one?
Who's not at this last Man Games that needs to be at the next one? I think it just needs to be the, oh man, that's hard. There's just been so many good people, right? Yeah. I'm trying to think through.
Who of your group of people that you know haven't been to any Man Games that should probably experience this?
I mean, it should be like, I mean, I bring it up all the time. I mean, you've been at, baseball banquets and stuff like that, where I'm bringing it up to everybody. And I'm not just doing that to do that. I mean, you're there, the man, the myth, the legend's there, so you can describe it better than I can. But I think it's something that anybody that loves sports, that's a good athlete, should experience, right? I think everybody should. I mean, it's just such a fun environment. And I think you're the person that's going to be able to bring that culture of that, those elite things, kind of how you're trying to build it out going forward into, we'll see how January goes, but I think it's going to go well. And I think, it'll qualify and go there. And whether my team makes it or not, that's great. I think it's going to be awesome. But I think anybody that really likes sports, that likes camaraderie, that still thinks they've got it, should do it. Honestly, I think anybody should. I'm still trying to get a lot of people in our neighborhood to do it. Yeah. So
we'll just throw a name out there.
Throw a name out there?
Yeah. We'll tag them in this.
Tag them in it. I think Andrew Almond should do it.
Andrew Almond.
Yeah.
You need to do Man Games.
Yes.
Okay. Who from this last Man Games would you like to learn more about on this podcast?
Learn more about. There were just so many good people. Honestly, I'd like to learn more about, and I'm not the best with names, but there was the guy that had not done really any organized sports until college, and then was, I mean, what was his name?
Justin Burke.
Yeah, he was awesome,
the one,
right?
like, dunking on people?
Dunking on people. And I'm like, he was just a freak athlete, but he was the nicest guy, right? Like, probably. I mean, he just didn't say a lot. So I didn't, and I didn't maybe go up to him and talk to him as much, but I would love to get to know his story more.
Yeah. He's a great dude. All right, last one, and you know what's coming.
Okay.
What does it mean to you to be a man?
I think, obviously, it means different things to everyone, right? And piggybacking off of my situation in my life where I don't have a dad, I have a lot of father figures. My wife hates it when we go to Logan and go to a grocery store or whatever, because I'll go up to someone and I'll give him a hug and be like, Uncle so-and-so, and, it's good to see you, whatever. And my wife really, to this point, doesn't know if they're a real uncle or if they are a figurative uncle, right? Because there are just so many people that stepped up as a man in my life that I can think of just areas and times, even before when my dad was alive, that they were a man, right? They've earned the mantle of being a man because for me, the biggest thing for me, and I think a lot of kids have this fear, right, is their parents say something or a mentor says something and they just don't follow through with it. You've got to do what you say you're going to do. You've got to follow through, especially to yourself, but everyone around you. I think that's mainly what a man is just doing what you say you're going to do. I know that's super basic, but we lie to ourselves all the time and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. Or we tell our kids, hey, we're going to do this, or we say in business or whatever. It's like, it goes back to that communication. You say you're going to do something by a certain date. If you can't get it done, tell them, right? I think it's a big piece of that. But going back to that man thing, what does it mean to be a man? I just have so many good examples of people that are not perfect, right? Like we talked about mentors at the beginning and picking up the best pieces of those and, leaving the things that we don't like behind. But that person is that person. Good, bad, ugly, all of it, right? That's what a man is. We're all going to have issues. We're going to do that, but it's just doing the best we can with the situation we're in, right? I think that's a big piece of that. But I can think of so many people that gave so much to me and my family members that had lives. They ran businesses. They had jobs. They had other families, but they did so much for me and my family. That's what a man is. Like they're good to the community. They're giving back. And honestly, we go back to the whole money thing, right? It's the whole hierarchy of needs, right? They had their basic needs met with money, so where they could come over to our house, or they could, come over and say, to younger Taylor, when I was like, I'm not going to get my Eagle Scout order. That's stupid. Why would I want to do that? We all have that moment. We're like, we're done. Where I have someone in my life that can talk to me. I remember my cousin, she was dating a guy at a time where I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. This is dumb. Like, I don't want to finish this. And he gave me all these great examples of his life where scouting made a big difference on him, right? And I remember even like going on a mission or whatever, like, I don't want to go. I don't want to do this. And I had so many good mentors that were like, you know what? If you go or if you don't, that's up to you, right? If you go on an LDS mission, you're probably going to be ahead from a spiritual standpoint. If you don't go, you may be ahead from a work standpoint or whatever. Like, it goes back to everything, but just them having that perspective. And obviously I was young and whatever, I'm going to do what I want to do. We're all there, but that they took the time out of their busy life to talk to a 19-year-old kid, or just whatever. I have so many good examples of that. And I think it boils down to, they were doing the best they could. Yeah. They were trying to help out. And I think part of that is they were prepared and ready, right? They were ready to answer the text or the call or whatever it was from my mom to encourage them to call me or to come over to the house or whatever. Like, they had not procrastinated whatever it was they needed to get done. They were able to get what they needed to get done. Or sometimes that fell out to the wayside so they could come and help me, right? I think that's in our lives, right? Like, we need to structure it so when we get that call, whatever it is, right? Yeah. It's a call to serve. It's a call in business with our kids, whatever. We need to be ready and prepared to answer that call.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You're awesome, man. And there's so much around this, right? If I look at the types of people that I want to surround, not just myself with, but my kids. And so the fact that you're my son's baseball coach means the world to me. I wrote a post about it, which I think I haven't posted yet, that you'll have to read. But just the example that you are as a man to myself and to my child when I turn him over to go learn not just a skill, but a way of life with the 3 Bs and everything else of baseball. But
3 Bs, baby.
I appreciate you being in my life and being that example to myself and to my kid. And I appreciate you being at Man Games and fulfilling just the whole mindset that I have around that of who I want there. You're a good man, and I don't know how else to say it. I mean, I just appreciate you. So thanks for taking the time. I know we took time out of your busy life and your schedule, but I appreciate you, man.
No, thank you. And I promise I won't throw any tennis rackets at anybody if I lose.
I'm
not gonna lose in
there
tennis.
There is a hatchet that you might, like, I don't want you throwing that because that could murder somebody.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks, man.